buried beneath the streets of Paris, hidden in a maze of darkness. There lies a mysterious world. For centuries, the dead have slept there, their stories long forgotten. But what if the echoes of those horrors are still there, just waiting to be found? Welcome into the world of Jimmy's Randomness, a place where shadows hide in the dark and secrets comes alive. For centuries, Paris had one main cemetery called the Holy Innocents, dating back all the way to the 12th century. It was one of the city's largest, where both the rich and poor were eventually laid to rest. But as the city started to grow, so did its population, and with more people came more deaths. By the late 16th century, the place was beyond full. Space was running out, and something had to be done. Instead of individual graves, cemetery officials started using mass burial pits. They carved out large trenches, laid the bodies down in layers, covering them with quicklime, and buried everything under piles of dirt. It was efficient, yes, but it stripped away the dignity of a personal resting place. Once, every grave had a name, a story. Now, thousands were buried together, their identities lost in the crowd. This didn't sit well with people. It felt impersonal, almost cruel. But with the city expanding and no better solution in sight, there wasn't much choice. Bodies were packed so tightly that something really gross was happening. Corpses were turning into a waxy substance that leaked into the ground, poisoning the water. Yes, people were actually drinking and cooking with water contaminated by the dead. Corpse wax, it's called. It forms when body fat breaks down but fails to decompose. Instead, it turns into a waxy, soap-like material that builds up over time, slowly seeping into the ground. The effects were impossible to ignore, as local wells started reeking of death, and even fresh milk would curdle the moment it touched boiling water. The smell was so bad that locals avoided the area completely. People reported being able to taste the cemetery stench in their food, and local shops near cemeteries struggled. Because who wants to shop or eat next to the overwhelming stench of death? People living nearby complained constantly of headaches, nausea, and other health problems. Windows stayed shut even during hot summer months as families tried desperately to keep the odor out of their homes. Eventually, the situation got so terrible that even King Louis XVI had to step in. In 1780, he finally said, "Enough," and ordered that all the bodies be moved somewhere else. But this wasn't just some impulsive royal decree, as scientists and doctors had been warning about the dangers for years. Now, the real turning point came when the foundations of homes near the cemetery started to collapse. Imagine waking up one morning to find your cellar suddenly filled with rotting corpses. A particularly rainy season had weakened the cemetery walls, and when they gave way, decomposing remains spilled into neighboring properties. It was the final, disgusting straw. But moving thousands of bodies wasn't exactly an easy job, and the work had to be done at night. Long processions of black-covered wagons rolled through the streets of Paris, under the cover of darkness. Each one was sprinkled with holy water, draped in black cloth, and followed by priests, chanting prayers for the disturbed dead. Even with good pay, many workers refused to take the job, fearing for bad luck or ghostly hauntings. Now, for those who did take the job, often drank heavily just to cope with the gruesome task. Some were so disturbed by what they saw that they suffered horrifying nightmares for years. Then came the big question. Where do you put all those bones? The answer was literally beneath their feet. Paris sat on miles of old limestone quarries, vast empty tunnels, carved out long ago to provide stone for the city's buildings. And so, these dark, abandoned passageways became the perfect solution. City engineers reinforced the tunnels to prevent collapses. Then they created a discreet entrance near the city gates. Here, the bone-filled wagons could unload their eerie cargo away from public view. And here's something strange. They didn't just dump the bones in piles. Oh no. Instead, workers carefully arranged them in eerie yet artistic patterns. Skulls were stacked neatly between rows of leg bones, forming haunting designs. Some sections were even labeled with plaques showing which cemeteries the remains came from. In certain areas, bones were arranged in shapes like crosses and hearts, turning what should have been a grim mass grave into something strangely beautiful. One section even has a barrel-like structure made entirely of bones, surrounding a natural spring. At the time, opinions were mixed. Some people saw it as a clever and practical solution. Religious leaders blessed the underground ossuary, offering it a sense of dignity, despite its unusual nature. Philosophers even visited, walking among the bones to reflect on life and death. But others found it deeply unsettling, knowing that millions of skeletons were stacked in patterns right beneath the streets they walked on. It wasn't long before ghost stories began to spread. People claimed to hear whispers and started hearing strange noises rising from the ground at night. Today, the Paris Catacombs are one of the city's most bizarre attractions. While people above stroll through cafes and boutiques, 6 million skeletons rest in the cold, silent tunnels below, more than twice the number of people living in Paris today. Visitors descend a narrow, spiral staircase, passing a sign that warns, "Stop. This is the Empire of Death." The tunnels stay at a cool 57 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, with the air carrying a distinct mineral scent mixed with the faint mustiness of ancient remains. The bones are stacked so densely that, in some areas, they actually help support the tunnels themselves. What started as a desperate solution to a public health crisis has now become one of the most hauntingly unique monuments in the world, a hidden city of bones beneath the city of light. The official tour covers about a mile of tunnels, but the full network stretches nearly 200 miles beneath Paris. Some sections remain off limits, but that hasn't stopped adventurers. A secret community of urban explorers known as cataphiles sneaks into the forbidden tunnels, leaving behind graffiti, hosting underground parties, and even setting up hidden rooms, complete with electricity and furniture. Police occasionally have to rescue lost explorers who venture too deep into the maze-like tunnels. The catacombs are a striking reminder of how differently past generations dealt with death, and how even the most gruesome problems can sometimes lead to unexpectedly haunting beauty. Every skull, every bone, was once part of a person who lived, breathed, and had their own story. Now they rest in silent unity, forming an eternal, unseen world beneath the streets of Paris. And that's a wrap for this story. Maybe you've got your own eerie stories to share, things that go bump in the night. If you've got a tale just itching to be told, please share it. Subscribe, like, and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.